The world of Sonic the Hedgehog is one full of mysterious mysteries that are mysterious. Mystery. Is it one world or two? What's its name? What's this dude's name? Or that guy? What's going on there? What color is that kid? Who drew this? Who did that? I've explored many mysterious mysteries, and most of the time I end up with nothing. But this is all I have since I lost my chipmunk wife. But the truth is out there, and I intend to keep on digging. And today we got a lot of weird things to uncover. I've come across a lot of strange characters that have left me with questions about their origin and purpose. And that's what we're exploring today. So put on your aluminum caps and pull out your EMF meters as we explore the supernatural and put the paranoid in paranormal. We are on a hunt for the cryptids of Sonic Adventure. Before we keep going, today's video is brought to you by me. Got some exciting announcements to share. First off, I'm going to be in London at SonicCon November 1st. I'll be around, but mostly at Stevie Cole's booth. Yeah, the same amazing artist who has produced some incredible thumbnails on this channel. Not to mention, she's a genuine professional artist in the games industry, having previously worked on Sonic directly with Sega Hardlight and previously at Playtonic and Rare before that. She's going to have some extremely beautiful and extremely rare pieces for sale, including her Sally and Surge models. I'm serious, she's only going to have a couple of these. Do not miss these if you're going to be at the convention. And after that, I'll have a panel at Sonic Expo in Dallas the following week, which happens from November 7th to the 9th. My panel is called Sonic Apologist, where I'll be welcoming any and all haters. So pop on by and tell me about a character, game, comic, or show, or whatever else that you despise, and we will debate and see if we can justify if it belongs in the Sonic franchise. You don't want to miss it. On top of all of that, I finally have merch available. We'll have special releases on occasion, so please be sure you go check that out. I'll have a link in the description. So if any of that sounds cool, please check it out, and I'll see you all in London and Dallas. Now, what exactly counts as a cryptid? Well, whatever the hell I want, because I'm including named characters, cut content, and just weird background elements that have never been properly explained probably because they didn't need explanation, it was just a part of the art direction, but that's never stopped us from overanalyzing. I mean, come on, the plot of the game revolves around a ghost and an alien. It's like an episode of the Dan, whatever the hell, it's got cats and speedy people. It's the same thing. I mean, really, if you think about it, Chaos and Tikal could easily be considered cryptids. You got yourself a dead little girl, a staple of the adventure games, and a gooey god who was mutated from a chow, which evolved from an alien that looked like Chaos. Also, they got little chow things. It makes sense. It's fine. It's not the first and certainly not the last example of ghosts and aliens in this franchise, but the ghost thing will be important later, and for Chaos, well, it was only recently reestablished that he was indeed a mutated chow, and also an alien, or evolved from aliens, whatever. Anyway, yeah, the chow, I'm also gonna throw them on the cryptid list. I know they're super commonplace now in the franchise, super commonplace except for the gameplay element that made them popular, but back when the adventure games first dropped, we really did not have anything like these little guys prior to that point. I know not everyone is super happy with retconning of them in Frontiers, but I don't hate the alien origins because at the time, all of this did feel very alien to me. My initial reaction to the chows and Chaos, and yeah, that confused me in the script because that was the same word twice. All of this looked like Y2K-ass alien designs with a little Sonic flair added to it. So yes, all these years later, saying that they all came from aliens, that works just fine with me. Completely works with the vibes of early 2000s as far as I'm concerned. But to get a little more obscure with the chow, we still have a mystery left unanswered, and that comes in the form of Buddy, with two hearts around his name. I believe this was discovered by PKR, fine human behind the Dreamcast conversion mod for the PC version of Sonic Adventure DX, and probably a whole lot of stuff that I'm not crediting them for that we need to see everything in this video. Anyway, apparently in every early printing of the US release of Sonic Adventure had this little chow hidden away on the discs, with 65% of its evolution already completed. And apparently, it's a big fan of Sam and Max. It's a little chow with a creepy smile smiling bunny appendages. Just an interesting little thing. Just figured it was worth mentioning while we're on the subject of chow. Oh my god, I just realized if you swap out the D's in buddy for N's, you get bunny. Swap these nuts! Speaking of bunnies, I'm adding Cream to the list of cryptids. She shows up super quick in DX and then she's gone. You jump scare rabbit. You're walking out into the blazing light of the morning after losing all your money and being drunk out of your mind, just walking, stumbling out of the casino. You look up, what the fuck is that? The rabbit's flying around. Does anyone see that shit? That's 2 mystery rabbits in one video. You can't beat that kind of deal. You could consider Big the Cat to be something akin to a tropical Bigfoot. One of the random explorers in the Mystic Ruins jungle mentioned coming across a giant footprint. Now, if you just come across this one little bit of dialogue, it might seem vague, but make no mistake, they are alluding to the kitty cat that got into Willy Wonka's bubblegum stash. Ironically enough, I had a harder time finding this one explorer than I ever did finding Big himself. And as it turns out, there are actually a lot of references to Big the Cat being compared to Bigfoot, and I only found this out thanks to the foremost expert on all things Sonic Adventure, Speeps, who I will be shouting out a lot in this video, so please be sure to check out his Sonic Hell blog because you'll find some wild stuff like Tails' plane being made out of faces. But in terms of Big, Speeps went out of his way to track down and piece together every single bit of dialogue that talks about Big as Sasquatch and put it all in order. Did all of this before I ever approached him with this insane topic of a video. I could not have found a better source. Because for all these years I thought it was just one line, but oh no. Depending on who you're playing and when you're playing, you will get different versions of this dialogue. As you can see here, if you're playing Knuckles on day 2, the explorer will say, "Hey, I found a gigantic footprint. I bet there's a big mysterious animal in these parts." And if you play Knuckles after Lost World, "Hey, I found an enormous footprint. Think I should name this big mysterious creature Sasquatch?" And if you actually play Big himself and talk to this explorer, he'll say, "Hey, I found a mega huge footprint. I bet there's a big mysterious creature looking out there. Is it you?" So yes, Big is a playable character, but considering his mysterious cameos in the following game and beyond, and this explorer literally referring to him as Sasquatch and Bigfoot, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that Sonic Adventure has you playing as a cryptid that talks to ghosts and goes fishing in aliens. What a game! I'm including Mecha Sonic Mark III on my list of cryptids because for a very long time we didn't have much of any information about this particular robot. Now, I have discussed it many times at this point on the channel, so bear with me if you've heard this before, but it shares the same designs as Mechagodzilla, like beat for beat as we've had it compared, and because of that I think this is just meant to be the same robot from Sonic 2 with more accurate parallels to the original Mechagodzilla design it took inspiration from. Whatever that original intention was, it's nowadays dubbed Mecha Sonic Mark III since this is still technically a different enough design from the other Mecha Sonics we have seen. And hey, I'm not about to be mad about that, it just gives me more Sonic robots. So no, while we don't have the exact information on the creation of this robot, I think we have enough here to figure out the broad strokes of what it was meant to do, and I'm thankful it's still used for cameo purposes here and there in the franchise. And hey, while I'm at it, I'm going to give a shout out to the practice dummies of this game. Not for being cryptids themselves, but inspiring the most infamous cryptid of the Sonic franchise, because the Tails practice dummy of this game inspired the creation of the Tails doll for Sonic R. And yeah, that thing doesn't need any kind of introduction. Again, did a whole video on that thing if you're interested. I want to throw Knights in there on the list as well. Only exists in dreams, my ass. Got all in Nightopia infesting a pinball table. What's going on there? And while we're in the casino, let's just mention this now because I know someone will mention definite in the comments otherwise. We also have a moaning neon cowgirl sign that was in the original Japanese release but was cut for the American release. Also want to mention those little pirate robots. I know they're just here as casino decorations. I'm assuming it's alluding to animatronics akin to the likes of Pirates of the Caribbean, but they can harm you and you can destroy them, and I just think they're neat, and I like that they're here. The shiny line's pretty cool too. All of this is just over-the-top decorations that you'd find in the likes of Las Vegas. Nothing really freaky about it until you get outside. What is the rabbit doing in the sky? Does it belong up there? Alright, so the main cast is out of the way, and a robot who is no stranger to this channel. But now we're finally going to talk about the stuff that's really captured my imagination for all of these years. First and probably most obvious is the Burger Shop statue. Now, this brown-suited, mustachioed NPC is copy-pasted a couple times around Station Square. And as we will discuss later, Sonic Team did have extra models that appeared in very specific places, so it boggles the mind that they decided to take an NPC that you see twice on the way to the statue and just make that the statue. Like, seriously, one of these NPCs is right across the street from this burger guy. Can you imagine going to work every morning, unlocking your shop, and across the street, there's this entirely different business that's got nothing to do with you, and it just has a statue of your likeness sitting out in front of their grease pit? What kind of existential horrors does that man think about every single day? And also, what does this statue have to do with burgers? See, this is the kind of stuff I love about Sonic Adventure. Sure, you could take a step back and ask, what is a blue rat doing with all this super speed? Why are the rings floating platforms? Blah, blah, blah. None of it makes sense if you think about it too much. But you suspend your disbelief and you have a goofy time. But you take one very specific thing out of place and it just captures your imagination. And also, you can use this dude to commit crimes. Now, this statue does incentivize you to check out the burger shop, even though there's no real need to do that. I mean, there's like a Sonic logo in there, I guess, and you get a love story about a stalker, if you care enough. But that aside, this thing doesn't really make any kind of sense if you're a Westerner. I'm sure many of you have already been caught up on the real-life inspiration of the statue, but just in case, I'll give you a quick rundown. This statue is based off one of Colonel Sanders, who stood in front of a KFC in Japan. This specific statue was famous because it was involved with a bunch of wacky-ass fans of a Tigers baseball team throwing it into a nearby river in a victory celebration. But after this event, the Tigers began to suck for a very long time, and this is where the curse of the Colonel was born. It explains all the fun references this little girl says about this mysterious statue. Don't throw it in the river, sometimes it travels, all kinds of fun things. I think that's wonderful. I just don't know why they didn't give that statue a white suit or something, but it is kind of hilarious that it's just an NPC we see twice on our way over to grab some fast food. But ironically enough, in 2009, the Colonel was finally fished out of the river it was thrown into, and thanks to decades of decay and just general muck, his suit ended up looking a lot more brown. Now keep in mind, Sonic Adventure came out long before 2009, so the dev team had no way of predicting that the Colonel would end up turning around and referencing the very reference that originally referenced the statue. Just a shame that Sonic wants nothing to do with KFC these days. Now, a statue by itself might not count as a cryptid, but keep that trip comment in mind because you can find it in missions in the DX re-release, way far away from the burger shop, and with its arms in different positions. And yes, one of those missions is indeed another reference to the drowned chicken jockey. He's a loving mainstay of Sonic Expo, hope to see you there soon, and he even makes the briefest of cameos in Kid Cudi's Sonic 2 music video. I think I even said Cudi's name right this time. Give me a hug for doing a good job. There is a lot more detail you could get into about the statue in Johnny Vector's video. It's some really interesting stuff, and you can tell he did his homework. So thank you, Johnny, for satiating a lot of curiosity I had for decades about this goofy thing. Also need to shout out Bad Nick Mechanic, and won't be the last time I do that in this video, for being the person to point out that the resurrected Colonel has tragically been destroyed as of last year and buried. Yeah, after it was fished out in 2009, it was put on display for the longest time, but unfortunately, KFC decided to just pull the plug, and that is that. Genuinely, this was one of the things I wanted to see in Japan, but alas, I was too late. Rest in power, burger guy. But while we are on the subject of NPCs, some of the more hardcore fans consider some of them to be cryptids themselves. As Speeps pointed out to me, some NPCs only exist in very specific scenes, like this little girl calling Big Buff to give you a clue to go pick up a car, or this bikini-clad lady in the Supersonic campaign mentioning that everyone's left. But you also get characters that only exist in cutscenes, as you can see from the ones provided to me by Speeps, and even has a joke with his girlfriend calling this particular one G-Man. Not only does he show up in cutscenes, but shows up in Amy's Finn screen. Did he spill those groceries? What a dick! Now let's move our expedition over to Lost World, easily one of the most elaborate levels of the entire game, one of my personal favorites, and one of the most important when it comes to the game's narrative, allowing you to explore the elaborate traps and treasures of ancient Echidna society. And while there is plenty of Echidna imagery scattered throughout the ruins of this game, this particular temple seems far more interested in snakes. They adorn the doorways, torches, walls, hell, even the hallways have serpentine qualities to them. Long, narrow, and winding. And most prominently, a giant stone snake hidden behind another big stone snake face. Stone snake is also what your mom calls my penis. I have for the longest time wondered if this snake was alive or just an automaton. And really, you could go either way on it. Stone golems happen right before and right after Sonic Adventure. Are they magically alive or just advanced Echidna business? I mean, they got a Bakugan garden gnome in the front yard. Baku Garden Gnome. Or hey, maybe this is tech from the ancients repurposed for the Echidnas, which is all just retroactive crap from Frontiers. Man, that game really did canonize ancient alien conspiracy theories for the Echidnas, didn't it? Disrespecting some Echidna ingenuity. Unbelievable. But whatever the case, it still doesn't answer another question I had. Why a snake? The Echidnas were pretty into themselves, slapping their faces on everything, but snakes seem to be a big part of their deal, at least for this specific temple. At first I thought that maybe this was a direct reference to Mayan culture or the city of Tikal itself, the spot the development team went to research for this game, and it still could be a source of inspiration. There's literally a temple in Tikal called the Lost World Temple with giant animal faces on it, but those are jaguars, not snakes. But I also just remembered that jaguar golem from El Dorado. Maybe an Echidna mystic is keeping that snake sliding around. But there is a major real-life connection to serpents in Mayan culture, and well, Aztec culture as well, in the form of a feathered serpent god that shows up under different names depending on the region and tribe. The most well-known being the Aztec name Quetzalcoatl. I'm not going to pretend to be any kind of expert, just a couple of Google searches told me that this was a creator god, so yeah, a pretty big deal. It's associated with wind and rain, and a connection between Earth and the heavens. Of course, in Sonic Adventure, the snake and all the imagery looks more like real-world fanged vipers. Maybe they changed it out of respect for the actual cultures they're pulling ideas from. Not sure that's the case considering what else we'll be looking at today, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Whatever the case, this is where I need to thank the detective work of Badnik Mechanic once again, because in his deep dive analysis of Sonic Adventure, he threw out the idea that all of this snake imagery is actually all a reference to Perfect Chaos. And I can kind of see that with the fangs kind of looking like those head flaps, the reptilian eyes, a serpentine body that flows like water, and the stone snake in question is literally swimming in water in a flooding room, no less. All of that does make a lot of sense to me. Now, why they'd set up a bunch of traps to keep people away from a warning, I have no idea. Seems a little weird that the Master Emerald was out in the open and not, deep down in an elaborate structure like it was just a game ago. But regardless, I do think that there's some genuine merit to the idea that snakes are being used to represent the Big Drip. Of course, retroactively, you could also point out the other giant snakes in the world of Sonic. We've seen them pop up again in Sonic Forces and Sonic Superstars. And that snake is also referenced in ancient stonework for a completely different culture. And they are far from the only giant reptiles in this world, so potentially the Echidna tribe could have worshipped a giant snake in their jungle. Editing Nick here just had to jump in quick because because I just came across the Forgotten Sonic Facts Tumblr, where they have posted another interesting connection with the Echidna tribe and the giant stone snake. While snakes feature prominently in Mesoamerican mythology, with the Knuckles clan already taking heavy influence from the cultures of that region, it's possible that this detail is also based on how the word echidna itself originates from ancient Greek, where it means viper. And on top of that, and thanks to Stevie for pointing this out, echidna is the name of the mother of all monsters in Greek mythology. She was a half woman, half snake. And yes, she is that boss fight you're thinking of from God of War 2. But whether this snake is an old school automaton or has some kind of magical sentience, well, the jury's still out on that one. But there's enough lore before the release of this game, and certainly plenty more after the release of Sonic Adventure, that could make that go either way. Me? Well, I like to imagine that Rocky dude is just having a grand old time in the pool for all eternity. But now we need to move on to another mystery potentially attached to the Echidna people as we move over to Angel Island itself. As you can imagine, a floating island has a lot of weird stuff going on, but the strangest mystery of them all might just be what's going on underneath the Red Mountain. When we explore the area outside, you'll find a lot of devices that seem to be taking advantage of the thermal power of the surrounding lava. At first, I thought these were simply Eggman's machinations, especially considering that badniks are everywhere, and that could still be the case, but as we dig deeper, and I mean that quite literally, I'm not entirely sure that's the case. But before we get down there, I also want you to take note of these fire traps spread throughout the map. They seem to be made out of rock and take the shape of a human skull. And when you go down into the second act of the level, well, skulls are the entire motif. The cheery music turns sinister with tombstones dancing to the beat and skulls lining the walls. They even decorate the floating furniture. Speaking of furniture, here's an electric chair. And of course, jail cells filled with prisoner ghosts. Poor guys are still locked up even after they're dead. Now for a level theme, this is pretty awesome, and kind of a clever way to shake up your basic elemental themes you'd find in most platformers. And if you didn't notice, the game does a great job mixing up all the basic elements. You got fire, you got ice, you got wind, you even fight water throughout the entire game. But back to the dead guys. The environment is telling us a pretty easy to understand story, and the DX version is a bit more blatant about it, with a mission literally calling these guys prisoners of hell. This is an interpretation of eternal damnation, with spirits being trapped in this place forever. But if you think about it too much, which I'm going to do, you begin to ask yourself, what is all of this doing on Angel Island? Did Eggman set this up? Was this potentially a work camp put together by the Echidnas? Or was this an entirely different culture? All of these skulls are human, and as I pointed out in other videos, this is not the only time we see human faces on Angel Island. Heck, you can see them in that sandboarding minigame, where you can also see some more stone serpents. And these ghosts could be, well, okay, let's be real, they could be anything, but I always assumed they were human, especially because the gravestones are also certainly human skull shaped and Christian, apparently. Every tombstone has a cross on it. Not the first time we got a Christ cameo in this series either, and that of course led me down another rabbit hole, and thanks to my friend Trey Nobles, he pointed out that a cross on a skull is largely associated with Golgotha, the spot of the crucifixion, partially because this was apparently where Adam, first man, was buried, and according to some, when Jesus was crucified, the earth split and his blood poured onto the skull of the first man, representing forgiveness of all of mankind's sin. It's like a full circle kind of thing, but also the Golgotha skull could be a reference to the literal spooky ooky skull face at Golgotha, which is crazy. And there's a big skull rock formation in the cave of Red Mountain. I didn't even realize that until I was making this video. That's nuts. So yeah, all of that is kind of interesting, and that blood on Adam's skull thing is metal as hell, but you also have to consider the hell of it all. That Golgotha stuff is pretty neat, but I don't think Adam and Jesus were sent to hell, and this place is clearly meant to be a form of punishment. It's just weird to have crosses in hell and also have hell on Angel Island? But I mean, it is called Angel Island, so I don't know. And I know looking at all this is like going to Spirit Halloween and being like, but what does it all mean? It's more than likely just fun set design, but it's also fun to try and build some lore out of it. I don't think this is a reference to Golgotha, and I certainly don't think Sega's current lore team will make that connection, but there is still something interesting happening here. In terms of storytelling for Sonic Adventure, following Badnik Mechanic's line of thinking for what this could represent for the overall narrative of the game itself, you could see this as a figurative interpretation for the deeper, darker truths of the Echidna tribe's sins that become uncovered as the game carries on. And personally, I thought that narrative was a bit of a missed opportunity for Knuckles, having to come to terms with the violent history of his people. In a more literal sense, though, if these ghosts are considered canon to Sonic's world, you could explain it away as one of the other cultures that existed at some point on the island. Like I said, we did see human faces in different sculptures in different games. Or you could say that this is all Eggman's doing. But again, I don't really think so. I think Eggman uncovered this area, because his badniks and the tech that he does use looks entirely different from what we see in terms of the machinery, the jail cells, and all of the gear work. It's a bit too rudimentary for the Doctor. Then again, he could be reactivating stuff, he's not above doing that, and he's certainly screwed around a lot on Angel Island. But the ghosts and gravestones tell me that all of this is much older, and the jail cells are the same green metal as the machinery surrounding them. So whoever built this equipment are the same people that punish these criminals. And now we have these souls locked away and just right out of reach of their final resting place. Not that it's resting all that much, look at those things groove. I have been talking about this for a while, and my buddy Gob pointed out that the Nocturnus clan of Sonic Chronicles used a lot of gears in their designs, and their devotion to technology could have easily explained away a lot of this. Granted, nothing from Sonic Chronicles is canon anymore, but I did think that was a fun idea too. Whatever the case, it still leaves me wondering, what did these damned spirits do in life that required such severe punishment? Again, there's an electric chair there. And that seems like just a waste of energy, like a hat on a hat. They're next to lava, just throw them in the lava. Maybe they were a labor force being used to mine this space, and if they deserted their duties, they were punished for it. Maybe these were the worst of the worst on Angel Island. Maybe it's things like this that made the Echidnas vanish even from their safe haven in the sky. I mean, really, if you think about it, if they escaped into the clouds after Chaos caused so much trouble, did Chaos just keep popping out and killing these guys? It doesn't make sense for Knuckles to still be around. So who knows, maybe these are dangerous criminals that killed the Echidnas, and if that's the case, we all might be better off with these spirits being locked away for all eternity. Oh god, where did they go? And while this certainly doesn't add to the lore, Speeps told me our chat gave him an excuse to make a post he had been planning on for a while. In it, he explains that the prisoners were all one model. They just changed proportions here and there, but it's all the same thing. Even their bandages are all the same texture. They just color them white and blue. What is interesting though is that it seems there's code in these designs that indicate these ghosts were intended to have 3 different sets of stripes: red, green, and blue, which is the only one that made it into the final game. So again, if you only care about the fiction, this doesn't add to it, but I certainly learned a lot more about a background element I always found fascinating. Thank you, Speeps. Well, that's everything I wanted to cover in-game, but we have a few more cryptids to uncover, and these ones were all but myth for a good long while. But now we have evidence that they at least almost existed. The most infamous of the cut content from the game has to be the dragon that was originally meant to appear during the Sky Chase sequence. And you can mod the model back in the game as it was rendered and partially animated before it was scrapped. It even has fire and ice attacks. It's possible they just ran out of time for this, but man, it would have been a fun way to break things up in the sky. And I have seen a lot of people calling this a 2-headed dragon, and I can understand why you would say that considering there's 2 necks flailing around. But if you look at the chest, you can can clearly see there's a third head there, which means if this thing had made its way into the final product, we would have had 3 prominent references to the Godzilla franchise: Biollante, Mechagodzilla, and King Ghidorah. Or maybe even Mecha King Ghidorah. And I still got people in my comments saying Sonic didn't steal shit from Goku. Look, if it really bothers you that much, just take solace knowing that the developers are huge dorks too. Who doesn't like kaiju? Another cut enemy that's been known by the hardcore community for a while, but I only recently found out about, can be found by cracking into the auto demo. For those of you who don't know, like I didn't, auto demo is exactly as it sounds. Leave the title screen on long enough and you'll see a demo of some gameplay. As it turns out, with a bit of modding, you can actually play these segments and apparently find some scrapped content. What the fuck is that? This, my friends, creeping around like some Silent Hill ass monster, is the unfinished duck of the final egg, who will spit out smaller ducks at you that will explode. You can't normally see the explosions, but again, thanks to Speeps, who not only told me about the duck, also sent over footage showing the intended baby duck explosions, taking out mama duck in the process. I have no idea why this was cut. This is awesome. Maybe it was just too on the nose having a duck in an egg. Well, let's move on. The game has posters that feature the remnants of a character hiding in plain sight. And no, I'm not talking about Man 3, but for real, I would love if we could find a high-res version of that picture, because who are all those characters? No, I'm talking about the poster with the Spider Girl. Probably would have had a different name to avoid any drama from Marvel, but it was fun to learn that Sega had not shied away from the idea of using creatures that don't normally get representation in media. And while they did avoid problems with Marvel, they also felt it was best to not mess with DC, as we later discovered that Flip the Bat was also an early concept character, and as you can see, this is taking more than a little inspiration from the 90s Batman flicks. Would not be the first time. Look at this dude, just as cheeked up as George Clooney. We even got a wild cityscape design, which, yeah man, that's just Gotham from Batman and Robin. But I'll be honest, I would have preferred this wild design over the more basic one that we got in the final game. I'm sorry, I know you guys like your humans and like the real world and all that crap, but I'm always going to prefer surreal environments and characters when it comes to this franchise. And also an open world Schumacher Gotham sounds sick. Man, they should make an open world Batman game. But yeah, obviously neither the spider nor the bat came to be. The closest we got were the spiders and bats in Red Mountain. Yeah, made it back there. But I don't think these characters ever truly died. I think they hooked up and had a little baby named Rouge the Bat. Got that femme fatale energy of the spider lady and, well, the bat of the bat. Also got daddy's cheeks. Just glad she didn't get daddy's face. Can you imagine if Sonic Adventure released with Rouge having that creepy ass chupacabra face instead of what we got? I don't think Twitter would be arguing over her cup size if she looked like that. But speaking of Sonic Adventure 2, I would love to explore the supernatural and the paranormal of that game, because unfortunately this is where our journey ends for the first Sonic Adventure. Did I miss anything? Yes, I did. What was going on with that demon face in that Knuckles fight? Did we ever find out the source of that? I thought that was like the cover for Dracula until I, looked at that again. It is not. That's pretty weird. But there you go. If I missed anything, please let me know. If you have your own theories, for the love of God, post them. I'm not just saying that for the sake of the algorithm. I genuinely love talking about this. I miss doing goofy videos like this, and I would love to do more. So if you'd like to see me talk about the creepy stuff from the classic Sonic games or stuff from Sonic Adventure 2 and beyond, by all means, let me know. Share the video. Let me know you want goofy stuff like this. And who knows, maybe someday we will finally have more of these mysteries solved.